What's up, guys, and welcome back to Jobsite Conditions right here on Deco-Crete TV. My name's Jeff, and on today's show, we're going to be showing you guys how to create an exposed aggregate finish on this 2,500 square foot patio. Now, this is going to be a step-by-step video with all the tools and equipment that you're going to need, so stay tuned and you're going to learn all about it. So today's project rates as a 5 on our DIY meter, and the product we're going to be using is D-Activator from Deco-Crete. Now, D-Activator makes exposed aggregate concrete easier than ever because of its predetermined exposure depths. With traditional surface retarders, the depth of exposure completely relies on the timing of when you wash the surface off. Now, it can be a guessing game of how deep the exposure will be, and if you have a really large area, chances are slim that it's going to be consistent through the entire slab. The Activator, on the other hand, it takes all that timing and guesswork out of it because the product determines the depth, not the installer. Now, there are 6 different choices for exposures ranging from micro etch all the way to fully exposed aggregate. Now, each exposure depth is color coded for identification, and those vibrant colors mean they are a great visual aid when spraying this stuff on the surface, so you're not left wondering if you sprayed enough on or not. Now, after that, the Deactivator does its thing, and you don't have to worry about hitting an exact time to start washing. Now, this doesn't mean that you should wait a few days before going back for removal, and you still want to get to it as soon as the concrete's ready. But once it is ready to wash, the exposure will be the right depth and consistent throughout that entire job. Now, I'm personally a big fan of exposed aggregate concrete. I love the look and that non-slip finish that it creates. And you don't have to worry about that surface paste spalling off because there's no surface paste left. It's almost like the concrete is pre-aged, and the blemishes that appear over the years, they just don't seem to be as noticeable as they would on that perfectly finished broom slab. Now, you can also add integral color to the concrete for an even more impressive final outcome. The tools and equipment we're going to need for this job are concrete pouring and finishing tools, a drill and a mixing paddle, a bag strainer and a heavy-duty pump-up sprayer, a pair of shoe and flats, a low-speed buffer, and a pressure washer. Now, for today's project, we're going to be meeting up with Ben from Cutting Edge Concrete, and we're going to be using Espresso Integral Color, number 3 Deactivator. We're going to need some Deco-Prep for the part of the cleaning process, walnut color dye on the border, and D1 to finish it all off. And don't worry, all these tools and products are all linked right down in the description below. With all that out of the way, it's time to head to the job site and get started. So now that we're out here at the job site, you guys can look around and see that this property is going through a pretty good renovation right now. And you know, the homeowners have had this place for a few years, and they just going through a total makeover this summer. And this patio and sidewalk is going to be a big part of it. And so this is going to be a great place for this exposed aggregate. It's just going to set everything off. You can see we got a pump hose here, so it's a big area today. And you know, it's kind of muddy around the job site, so man, a concrete pump can go a long way to just make this really easy for us and make it go really fast. So the trucks are going to be here in just a couple minutes, and we're going to get started. When it comes to pouring, I mean, honestly, there's not much different here. We do have integral color in this concrete, which is really going to set off our exposed aggregate, but there's really nothing different. We're going to pour this just like you pour any concrete. It's when it comes to the finishing, that's where we're going to need to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to end up spraying our Deactivator on. And then when we get into the washing, those are really where we need to treat this a little bit different than a normal concrete job. So with that being said, I think the trucks are coming down the driveway and we're ready to go. So now we're getting ready to start finishing here, and just a few tools that we're going to need. Some of these you guys might already have, some you might not, but these are all pretty important. First one being a good Fresno like this. These come in different shapes and sizes. I like this big one. It's actually 12 by 48. You can get a lot done with it. And we're just gonna put this on a bowl float handle and run it just like a bowl float. It's really important that we get a good steel finish on this stuff. You know, as the higher the number of this Deactivator, meaning the deeper the exposure, the more forgiveness we're gonna have. The lower the number means lighter exposure, means the better the finish is gonna have to be because we're not gonna wash as much of it away. No matter what though, you always wanna put a good steel finish on it. We don't want any big trowel marks or anything like that. And that's why I like using a round edge finish trowel like this. That way I'm not leaving, you know, trowel marks as I go along. And all the way out to the edge, it's also important that everything gets hit with steel. So if you just using magnesium tools or you have brass edgers, you got to make sure you finish all that up with a steel trowel. Otherwise, we're going to see a little bit of a difference in the finish. As far as when is it time to start finishing, and honestly, the easiest way I can explain this is if we were gonna create a really nice fine broom on the concrete, that's about the time that I'd like to run this Fresno out over there. That's gonna give me time to get everything finished nice. But the biggest thing, no matter what, is I need to wait long enough until I'm not leaving any big nasty lines or anything like that. Now there is definitely waiting too long. If it's at the point where you're just troweling it really hard and it's just actually getting smooth like a garage floor when you're finishing it, man, that is just too late. And you know, once the concrete is that set up, this deactivator is not gonna do anything for us. So it's a fairly big window, but there is a window that we have to get. So for the timing of spraying the deactivator, what we're looking for is this to be at the point where I could barely even get a broom mark in it. So when I touch it, I really don't want my fingers to sink in. It really shouldn't even be picking up on my fingertips, but if I were to scrub across it, I could still mar it up pretty good. So before we get started spraying here, I just want to run over a couple things that we're going to need. First one is a very quality sprayer. I love this stainless one from Chapin. It just seems to last the longest. It sprays great. And you know, if this is a red can Chapin, that would work just fine as well. But what we definitely don't want is just a plastic little pump up sprayer from a hardware store. Those things just won't build enough pressure, and this stuff's a little bit thicker, and it's just not gonna spray it right for us. So good, high quality sprayer. Another nice thing to have is these shoe-in flats. These are something that will allow us to walk on this and spray it. You know, a lot of this area is we could actually reach it with our wand, but when we get down to that bigger area, gonna have to walk on it. And you know, if we wait till we could really walk on it hard with our shoes, it's just too late. So a pair of shoe-ins is a great thing to have. And then the other thing is, you know, after you mix up that deactivator, you know, just take a look and see, you know, if there's any chunks that came off the side or anything. It's good to just run this little bag sprayer. We can just put this right in our sprayer. And in fact, it's just, if you have one of these on the job, it's always a good idea just to run it through the sprayer no matter what. That eliminates any chunks. So the coverage we're looking for here is approximately 150 square feet per gallon. And this is pretty important because not getting enough on will definitely cause this stuff not to work. On a job like this, you know, it's about 2,500 square feet, so that I know, and if I do the math, I know that each bucket should cover approximately, you know, 650 to 700 square feet per pail. Now that might be putting a little bit more on than I need, but if I gauge it that way, I know I'm gonna be getting enough on and I'm not gonna have to worry about wasting a couple gallons. So it's been about 5 hours since we finished this first load, and it is ready to go. What I always like to do is, you know, you can kind of look at the top, you can feel it a little bit, but it's hard to get a good idea. So, you know, we went ahead and pulled the forms off. And what I always do is just take a little rock and just kind of scratch it a little bit, and kind of like you would if you're checking to see if it was ready to saw cut. That's kind of what we're looking for. You know, we'll be able to dig into it a little bit, but it should be pretty far along at this point. At very least, you know, it's gonna have to hold our weight. We can't be sinking in or making tracks anymore. When we start walking on it, you know, we might make some marks in the deactivator, but that's okay, because that top little layer there is never gonna get hard. That's the whole point. We just gotta make sure what's underneath that is ready for a pressure washer. Now, especially for, like, this is a number 3 deactivator, which is kind of in the middle. And for those lower etches, it's really just a must to use a buffer machine with this. It just takes way longer if you just try to pressure wash it. And you know, sometimes you gotta let it get way harder because you're just removing that tiny, tiny little bit. Even for the high exposures, I would always recommend having a buffer on the job just because it will always go faster. In this case, you know, there's a pretty big area. We've actually got 2 buffer machines, 2 pressure washers. So we're gonna get 4 guys on this, and it's just gonna make it go really, really nice and fast. And what I'm looking for the buffer itself is just a low speed buffer. This one happens to be 17 inches, but if it's 20 inches, that's fine. We just don't want anything high speed. And we want this brush. This is kind of a medium stiffness brush. And that's where we don't want anything too soft. It's not gonna do enough. Too stiff, it might just dig in a little bit hard. Now, if it was a cooler time of year, it is possible to wait for tomorrow. In fact, you know, a lot of people do that spring, fall. I always say though, if it's possible in the summertime, pour in the morning so you can wash it off in the afternoon. It just always goes better and is way, way easier. So all we're gonna do here is, it's important just to wet the slab down first, and we can just do that with our pressure washer. We're not like hitting anything hard, we're just soaking it down, because that buffer, it doesn't like to be on anything dry. It needs just a little bit of moisture on there, just to, almost like a lube, so it can scrub across it. And it's just gonna remove that paste very gently. And the pressure washer in this case, honestly, is just kind of there just more or less just for rinsing. And you know, you might find a little spot here and there that you have to hit it kind of hard, but other than that, the buffer does the work, and the washer is just to get everything off the slab. So as a final step in our washing process, the last thing we need to do is just give this a rinse down with Deco-Prep. And what that is just a really light solution that what it's gonna do is just gonna clean up all this latent cement paste that's sitting on here and just kind of get rid of that haze. And that's the last thing we need to do. And so you could do this the same day if you wanted to. In this case, you know, they were back here this morning saw cutting, and after you saw cut concrete list, you really just got to wash it all down anyways, and we have all that sawdust to deal with. So in this case, we might as well just do it while we're cleaning up the sawdust. So it's a really easy process. All we need is some Deco-Prep and a sprayer to spray it out of, and we are going to use our buffer again. And so we're gonna mix that Deco-Prep approximately 10 parts water to 1 part Deco-Prep. And you know, depending on when you do this, same day, you know, maybe you dilute that a little bit more. If it's been a couple days, maybe go a little bit heavier, but 1 to 10 is always a great starting point. And we're just gonna get the whole slab wet. Works good to have 2 people, so somebody can spray the solution down as well as keep rinsing, and one guy just buff it, and that's what you need to do. We don't really need to let it sit there for you know, a long period of time. We just spray it down, buff it, wash it off. And then after that, we just want to give everything a final clean just to get everything completely off here. Now, all we need to do now is just let this thing cure out for a few weeks, and then we can apply some dye on the border and seal things up. A D1 from Deco-Crete is really the go-to option for most exposed aggregate projects, but there is also the option of brown tone tint or pre-tinted brown tone sealer if you're looking to add a slight amber color. Well guys, that's a wrap for this week's project. Special thanks to Ben Klein and everyone at Cutting Edge Concrete for letting us hang out on their job site this week. And thanks to you guys for watching these videos. We really appreciate all the support you guys show to the channel. Please leave us a comment if we missed anything or if you have any questions about exposed aggregate concrete. For more information on live, in-depth trainings on decorative concrete, please go to deco-cretesupply.com and click on the training tab. Now, if you guys found this video helpful, please let us know by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. And if you're already subscribed, don't forget about that bell icon so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos, and it really helps our channel out. So from all of us here at Deco-Crete TV, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.